Okay, welcome back. Welcome back to the meeting. We have our delegation for 1 o'clock. Welcome to our meeting, Rob. As you can see, all our names around the screen. You don't need, if you want an introduction, we can certainly do that for purposes of knowing where everybody comes from. Is that your desire? Or?
Yeah, that'd be great to see that.
Okay, we'll start with Lionel.
Hello, Rob. Lionel Justin, Division 10, which is north and east of Brooks.
Okay.
Wayne.
Wayne Hammergren, Division 4, around Scania, Rainier, and Bow City.
Hubie.
Good afternoon, Rob. Hubie Kellen, Division 2, the Tilly area.
Okay.
Clarence.
Clarence Amulon, living just outside of Rolling Hills, Div 1.
Anne-Marie.
Anne-Marie Phillipson, Division 3, Patricia Millicent area.
Tracy.
Hi, Rob. Tracy Fife, Division 5, which is south and west of around Brooks, so Castles and Antelope Creek areas. Lake Mill Resort.
Kelly.
Hi, Rob. I'm Kelly Chrisman. I'm from the west side of the county, Division 6, Bazzano area.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Ellen.
Hello, I'm Ellen Andra, and I'm from the area around the village of Rosemary.
My name is Brian DeJong, and I represent the area around the village of Duchess and going north to the Red Deer River. Our Reeve is on other duties right now. She might join in later and that's Molly Douglas, and represents the area far north into the Jem Finnegan country. And I'll let some of our staff who's online be able to introduce themselves too. Go ahead, Kevin and Matt.
Hi, Rob. I'm Kevin Stevenson, County Administrator. Welcome.
Okay, great.
Welcome, Rob. Matt Fensky, Manager of Finance. We've talked on the phone and been back and forth with emails.
Yes, you're the only one that I recognize.
We have Lane in the other office, and hopefully, I know Ariana's at the back there recording our minutes.
Yeah, Lane Johnson, Ariana Nielsen are taking care of things behind the scenes.
Okay, perfect. And I imagine you met this morning already, is that right?
We've been on online meetings since 10 o'clock.
Okay.
And so you're our 1 o'clock delegation. And with that, if I haven't missed anybody, as far as introductions, you could tell us a little bit about yourself and then just go right into your presentation, please.
Okay, great. My name is Rob Lutzer. I'm an engineer here in Calgary. I've spent first part of my career working for larger companies, but for the past 20 years working for smaller companies, and Success Resources has been my client since about 2007, 2008. So I've been providing engineering activities for Marshall. I'm not sure if anyone knows Marshall Bandura. He's the president of Success Resources, and the Taquitas are also big investors in Success Resources. Now, did everyone receive my handout at all?
Yes, we have your package.
Great.
It was in our agenda package. So for help for us, if you have a particular, if you're going through it, please indicate which page you're on so that we can follow with you then, okay?
Well, there's only 4 or 5 pages, so if it works for you, how about we just start at the beginning and we'll just flip through real fast.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks, Rob.
Okay, let me, so on the second page is a brief description of the company. It's a private company held predominantly by investors from Southern Alberta. It was established in 2006, And basically, we stay focused on sweet oil and natural gas in southern Alberta, but it's mainly in that Barrie area and Scandia area. And our total current corporate production is about 260 barrels a day of production. The property that we're here to talk about today was purchased in 2014 from a company that was basically on its way to going bankrupt, Canex Energy Corp. Marshall, the president, had basically thought he was helping out a buddy or helping out a friend by taking over some wells to keep them going. Didn't realize that there was some arrears involved with the acquisition of $181,000. And as you'll see as we go forward, this property it's made up of basically shallow type wells. Some make oil, but predominantly gas. And they've been losing money as an entire group since day one. And really, in hindsight, this is one of those packages that should not have been purchased. But unfortunately, for success, Canex really should have just been allowed to continue on through the bankruptcy procedure. The next page is the balance sheet, and these are numbers pulled off from Tracy Stern. She's our VP of Administration. And the bottom line, you can see that the total revenue for the last 5 years is about $640,000, and yet our total expenses are $1.8 million. And you know, it's hard to imagine, but that this property in itself has lost about $1.2 million since acquiring it. And on the next page, I just gave a couple of reasons, and I don't want to go into why this industry is being punished right now through low commodity prices due to pipeline egress, overdevelopment in the States, all that stuff. Lack of LNG export out of British Columbia. But the bottom line is you can see that when the deal was first being looked at by Marshall, you know, you could see, you know, we're making $4.50, $5 in MCF for gas. And as we've continued on, you know, the costs have just been, or the commodity prices just eroded really down, averaging below $2 in MCF. And to the point where in this area, we have no third-party processing. So our gas goes to either CNRL or to Torxen, and you can see there's often months that we can't even cover our third-party costs. It's a shame, to say the least. So the next page, which is the property taxes, County of Newell. The new property taxes, which that's being referred to, are basically the property taxes that we took over at the beginning of the acquisition. And in the last 5 years or so, and Matt might be able to give me tighter numbers, but these are numbers we could come up with. We've been assessed $245,000, and of that, Success has paid $332,000. So we paid in excess of the amount of the property taxes that have been assessed to us since taking on this property. Moving along, though, since Scandia has been losing money from day one, it's been basically impossible to catch up with the arrears of the $181,000 in unpaid Canex taxes. And the way the penalties are set up, being compounded, and again, I'm not an expert in this, so I think Matt understands the way the penalties are assessed, is that once you fall behind, you're in trouble. You just can't get ahead. And you know, for an area that has lost money, and for a company that has basically paid, I'd say, $80,000 over and above what has been assessed since being an owner, like that money is basically coming out of the shareholders' pockets. The property isn't curing itself. And just the way that the property taxes are so punitive, the way the system is set up, that once you fall behind, the penalties are so punitive that in our case, if you go to the next page, you'll see that the cumulative taxes have been 426,000, and that's including the most recent amount, and we're and the penalties have been 270,000, just the penalties. And basically, what we're coming to the table here with is asking for some type of relief to get success back on the right side with you guys, because we're in the process of drilling wells. Like that's the only way we're going to survive in this industry. It's not by continuing to produce these wells, because they're just not covering themselves. We have to get out and start drilling some wells. The only way we're going to do that is to raise money. And having this overhang of unpaid taxes is basically crippling Success's ability to go out and raise money. So what we're looking to the county is to give us the relief, acknowledging the fact that we've paid, Success has done a good job to date to pay the taxes that have been assessed to them since taking over the property, and hopefully there's an opportunity here to clean up our balance sheet.
Thank you, Rob. I guess would the council like to ask some questions of you, Rob, on some either clarity or additional information? Lionel.
Well, through the chair, Rob, just a question. You're talking about new wells. I don't quite understand how that's going to be a benefit to you when new well production will be paid the same as the old production. So you please clarify that for me, please.
Well, new wells produce at higher rates. That's the bottom line. So for the same amount of surface cost, property tax, everything, you end up generating more revenue. Like the older wells aren't producing at a rate like when you produce a well, typically within the first 2 or 3 months is peak production for a well, and then it declines at that point. And we are all the wells that are remaining in the county right now in Scandia are older wells that are basically just limping along. So if you go out and drill new wells, you're going to have much higher rates, and because of that, you'll have higher profit margin.
Other questions? Tracy.
So I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify on the one sheet that shows the cumulative penalties and the cumulative payments, are those land locations all in regards to Scandia?
Yes.
I didn't look up to the land locations, but okay, so that's all, each of your wells in the Scandia area is on there.
That's right. And the pipelines. The linear makes reference to pipelines.
So Rob, have you guys got a plan for these lower producing wells as far as long-term, whether they fit into the orphan well program for removing them from production, or are they still viable enough that they I mean, according to your balance sheets, they're not. So I guess the question remains is there a plan in place to remove them from production and clean up the site?
Well, the original plan, and still really is the plan, is basically we're waiting for better commodity prices. Like that's the bottom line. Now that's what's going to save this area. It's going to save Success, and in general, it's going to save the oil industry. we can't continue to limp along at ACO prices of $1.50, $1.75. Even from your standpoint, the amount of taxes being pulled off for royalty is very, very poor at these prices. So number one is we're hoping in the next few years that the commodity prices will increase. With regards to the Orphan Well Fund, the Orphan Well Fund only comes into play when a corporation goes bankrupt. It would be not good for the individuals of Alberta, but great for all companies if we could just pick our uneconomic wells and donate those to the Orphan Well Fund. That's not how it works. You basically have to go bankrupt as a corporation in order for the wells to end up in the Orphan Well Fund. So that's not really a solution that we're looking at. What we are looking at is there is a new program that came out called the Alberta Site Rehabilitation Program. And there's, I think, $1 billion from federal monies that are being basically handed out to deal with abandonment issues. And we have several wells and pipelines identified in Scandia to clean up the well sites. So the wells that we believe will continue to be uneconomic even in better commodity prices, we're going to clean up, and the rest we're hoping that things improve. Now, one of the ways that we have improved our operations in the field is that we were going, if you can just zoom back to the gas prices and processing fees, up until the middle of 2019, we were tied into CNRL. And CNRL, because they're dealing with depleting inflows, have continued to increase the costs for processing. And you can sort of see, like, we've gone from sort of $1.25 initially to we peaked at over almost $3 last fall, like last winter. And since then, what we've done is we've done a different deal with another processing company, which is Torxen, in the area, and actually in doing that, we've sold them 5 or 6 wells, and they've agreed to give us some much more reasonable rates. So you can see that our rates are cleaning up to the point where, hopefully, if the commodity prices continue to improve, this area will turn around.
Okay, thank you. Anne-Marie.
My question is for Matt, I guess. Is this an exception, or are there more similar companies in this situation?
So of, I guess, our larger balances owing out there, if you just look at taxes owed to us and what share of that is comprised of penalties, we're sitting on about $648,000 that's owed to the county due to penalties which have been applied over time. Of that amount, $452,000, or 70% of what we're owed in penalties, is due to us from 7 oil and gas companies. Success makes up about 30% of that, or 189, which is currently on our ledger. So there would be others. If council is looking at making an exception for the Success, you need to look at the others as well, what you do there.
Wayne and Tracy.
This is for Matt again. What do you estimate if we do say forgive the penalties? Would we be looking at recovering the back taxes on these wells and stuff for not just Success but for the other companies? Would that be possible, or is that just up in the air?
On probably the largest balance, it's Houston Oil and Gas, and we know they're in receivership. They owe us about $200,000 just in penalties. So that you're probably not going to see any recovery on the amount that Houston Oil owes you. For these others, I can't, that's a crystal ball kind of question. I get Rob's argument. You know, they came in, purchased the CanX property. CanX was struggling. They owed the county a lot of money from day one. So I can kind of see the argument on, you know, we've paid more in just original taxes than what has been assessed to success since they became the owner. I struggle with the idea of special treatment for a company. So I think if there's anything that council wants to consider, it would need to be across the board for the oil and gas guys out there.
If I could just add one thing, and that is, I was talking to a counterpart with who just purchased some Trident wells. Trident is another company that had gone bankrupt and marketed by Sayers and Associates. And they had agreed to pick up a bunch of wells up in the Red Deer area. And prior to, and there was a whole bunch of unpaid property taxes arrears associated with those wells. And the county of Red Deer just agreed recently to basically wipe those past taxes off, so that like my counterpart would be starting with a clean sheet when he purchases these wells. So it's not something that's like, I think there are counties out there right now that are being pushed to that level. Yeah.
Okay, Tracy was first, and then I'll go to Lionel.
Hi, yes. My question again is for Matt. I'm just wondering about, hopefully I can explain this way, what I'm asking is about the interest rate and penalties over, say, in the last year. Like, so the unpaid property taxes were like 181,000, and then there's been penalties charged on that for lack of payment. Is that correct? And what interest rate? Do you understand what I'm asking? Like, if you can explain that to me.
Yeah, so our previous penalty bylaw, and we call it penalty, not interest rate, because there are some people who like to look at outstanding taxes as we're financing that balance for them, and it's a punitive thing. The penalty bylaw, it's a penalty for non-payment. How it worked previous to this year, if you haven't paid your current year taxes by the June 15th deadline, you were penalized at 3%. That bought you a little bit of time to November. If you haven't paid by November 15th, we applied an 8% penalty in November. So that's 11% that you would pay in year one if you don't pay your taxes. At the end of the fiscal year, those current year taxes go into arrears, and you would then have until March 1st, sorry, to pay. And if you haven't paid by then, you would get hit with a 12% penalty. So essentially, you know, between June and March on that current year tax amount, what is that, 23%? So Rob's right. Once you get in arrears, it compounds, and it compounds fast, especially if you owe a significant balance. It's maybe not so bad for a residential ratepayer who only owes us a couple $1,000s, but when you're assessed at $60,000, $70,000, $100,000, those penalties add up pretty quick.
Okay, Lionel, and then Wayne.
So my question is to Rob. So if we change the whole structure of our tax position, if we base it on production per well rather than on the well location, would that solve your problem? And better wells will have to pick up the tax for your poor wells.
Great question, Lionel. I was talking with a councilman who is on the Starland County. He owns a trucking outfit, and he was providing some trucking services for us. And we had this very same conversation, and that was something that I proposed to him, is that not necessarily better rate wells, but somehow if you could tie the property tax to commodity prices. Because once you hit a certain price, and I'm going to throw a number, once you hit $3 an MCF or $3 a gigajoule, you're going to, you should be able to cover your current taxes, surface land costs, and your well costs. But when we're in those years where we're $1 an MCF, or we're just not making enough revenue, it would be great to see the property taxes be prorated down. As far as the good wells, the only problem is good wells eventually become bad wells. So it's probably not in anyone's favor to try to tie too much revenue. And really where the government gets their piece of the cake or piece of the pie of that is through royalties. You end up paying higher royalties on higher rate wells.
So just so we're clear, that's a different level of government than municipal government. And just so we're clear on another thing, we don't have the ability to adjust the rate that a well generates to our input costs when it comes to graders and staff that run those graders and graveling and trucking costs. As you well know, this isn't anything you're not aware of. So yeah, that's the unfortunate part for when you're down below the $3. We're still paying, as you guys are, the same amount for trucking and graveling and costs like that. So it's not an excuse, but it's a reality. Anyways, Wayne, you had a question?
Actually, I have two questions. One for Rob. How many employees do you have working in the Scandia area at the present time?
I think we have one operator. Like, it's not one official operator, but we have one operator that watches over everything there.
Okay. And this second question is towards Matt. Matt, if they went in arrears with their taxes, we cannot go in there and claim them like an ordinary property, can we? We can't grab the property and put it up for auction.
Right. I mean, the best you could do is go after the machinery and equipment, and we know machinery and equipment on those old wells isn't worth anything right now. So the largest balance is on their linear property. So that's the pipeline. We've spent a lot of money on lawyers, legal opinions, trying to figure out how we deal with some of the taxes in arrears. And on some of these, there's not a lot that you can do to secure it. If it was a house, we would have taken it and sold it by now, or it would be in our tax recovery inventory. Oil and gas is just a lot harder to do much on the recovery side with.
So my point is on this is, and maybe council won't agree with me, but it is in our interest to keep trying to keep this company viable and the oil patch viable, because if they go bankrupt, we're probably not going to recover this money anyway. So this is just something for us to think about.
Wayne, you're right on the. Can I interject for a second?
Absolutely, Rob. Go ahead.
You're right on the money. I asked this councilman from Starland County if they had any companies, and he mentioned one, which is Sandling. And I said, well, when are you going to give them some movement to clean up their property taxes? And he laughed. He says, probably when they go bankrupt. But I said, but that's the wrong time. Like, you're right on the money. If we can find a way to keep oil companies solvent, it's in everyone's best interest.
Kelly.
And we're trying. That's I have to admit, we're trying.
Yeah, Rob, and I would agree that you are trying. My question goes back to when you realized there was these outstanding taxes and times were good 5 years ago. why would you not have gone to the bank and got those cleared off through a much lower interest rate?
Well, number one is the success runs without any debt. It's all shareholder debt, and unfortunately unpaid property taxes and service costs. But we're a company that has, and I can't remember how many shareholders there are, but at this point, even 5 years ago, it didn't make sense to go and raise money to clear this thing up, because it was the properties weren't covering it, right? So you're wondering why we didn't raise $200,000 back then? Yeah, no, that wasn't the goal. When we did the acquisition was for the properties to cover itself and the property taxes.
Okay. Any other questions? Does our staff have any questions or comments in regards to this? Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation, Rob. We will give you a response. We do appreciate when our industry partners come in and communicate with us their issues, and we will definitely give it some thought.
Thank you, and thank you once again for the opportunity to attend today.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So is it fair to say that we need to have a discussion at some point in time, not necessarily right this minute, but later on this issue? Okay. And with that, I think we'll move on to the rest of our agenda, and if we have time, we'll come back to this at this time. So I have as the next thing on the agenda the Municipal Census and Divisional Review, and that is Lane, I believe.
Correct. So Council will recall the decision had been made last year to conduct a census. We had included it in the 2020 budget. When it was time for us to proceed with the census, the decision was made to put it on hold because of the pandemic. The primary objective for conducting the census was to obtain up-to-date information regarding the distribution of the county's population so that a conversation can take place about realigning the divisional boundaries. There is still time for us to look at proceeding with the census. If a decision is made to go ahead, we could do it in September, and the information from that would still be available for us to use in the discussion and the consultation process that needs to take place about new divisional boundaries throughout the county in advance of the deadline that looms for a new bylaw to be in place by spring of 2021. So it's just a question of whether or not council wants to look at moving ahead with the census this fall. It certainly is clear that the number of active cases of infection in the local area has dropped off significantly, but it is still present in the community, albeit much reduced presence. And the census could certainly go ahead without, I believe, much risk to the residents or to anyone involved in the census process. There is an online option. We would, of course, encourage all residents to respond through the online option so that nobody has to knock on their door. In the event that a visitation is required at the property, the enumerator would be able to knock on the door, step back. They would be able to maintain the required distance separation. At no point would an enumerator have to enter a home. We think that it would be possible for us to go ahead and hold the census, respecting the social distance requirements. So it's just a question of whether or not council wants us to do that.
Thanks, Lane. Questions for Lane? Tracy?
I think we should go ahead and look at it. It's something that we as a council have talked about, that we are taking seriously, that we want to look at the structural, the boundaries. And I think that with the online process and the social distancing, I think we should look at getting it done.
Thanks, Tracy. Wayne?
There we go. Yeah, I agree with Tracy on this, but I've got a question on how we do the consultations. After, like, the census done, we're going to do consultations with the community. Elaine, have you thought how that would be processed? Go ahead with this virus thing we got going?
Well, the consultation process, it can certainly be done through different forms of media that's available. We would be able to distribute information to the residents and invite them to respond through a number of different options that could include a simple survey. They would be able to go online and indicate what preferences there are. There are a number of options that are there for us without actually requiring us to organize large public meetings where people would be given the opportunity to provide a response as a group. In fact, I think an effective consultation process is one where individuals are able to respond in ways that allow for their position to be clearly communicated. And there are several ways that that can be done without requiring them to attend a public meeting.
Okay, thanks for that question. Any other questions? I see none. So I take that as and welcome back, Molly. After this, you're welcome to take over from these guys. They're really giving me a hard time. So
I'm not taking over. I've been all over the place, and it's been a great day, and I'm just enjoying sitting back and watching you grieve or grieve.
yeah, don't move that position too quickly. Anyways, we're just discussing the boundaries, the census, and Wayne has his hand up, so go ahead, Wayne.
Well, I'm not sure how but I would put a motion forward that we proceed with the census in September, as Lane put it forward.
Okay, so the recommended action is authorize the administration to proceed with 2020 municipal census in late summer, early fall. Do we need a motion for this, or is this already, because we have it in budget and we have previously made a motion that we were going to follow this. So this is where I'm asking Lane or Kevin or whoever would like to comment. Is it necessary to have a motion, or would it be okay just a direction to proceed?
Direction to proceed would probably be okay. It is on the record that council wanted us to hold off on the census when it was originally scheduled to take place. And we just need to make sure that it's clear that council supports moving ahead with it in September.
Okay, well, with that, I think we will have a motion then, because that will give clear direction as to, because we put it on hold, that we will follow through on what council wants. So I'm looking, Wayne, I think that was your suggestion to make this as a motion. Okay, thank you for that. Any more discussion? Oh, there's Anne-Marie.
Wondering if we could make part of the motion why we're doing it. Connection to redistribution of the numbers in each division. That's why we're doing the census. So I'm wondering, Wayne, if you want to mention that in there so that connection is clear.
Yeah, let's go with that. Make sure that it's clear in the motion that this is for to redistribute what you said. How does that work? Okay. My lips ain't moving working very good today. So
let's be clear on what we're voting on. So Ariana, you get your chance to speak. Do you have a motion written there that we can vote on?
No. If I might, the one thing I think that needs to be clear is that, yes, we're wanting to capture information that would be used to assist council in redistributing the county's population across electoral divisions. I don't think you want to suggest that it's going to be across 10 divisions, across 9 or 7. That decision has yet to be made. All we're doing is gathering data about where people live so that we can redistribute the population across electoral divisions.
Okay. I think that was very well said. That sounded like the way that this motion should be captured. Ellen.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that personally, I think the timing is, I don't think the timing is quite right. I'm scared that a second wave will come. According to many specialists, health professionals, they think that a second wave is here coming, especially during the flu season. So I'm afraid it's not the right timing. I just wanted to say that for the record.
Okay, thank you for that. So we have a motion on the floor to support the census for redistribution of population boundaries. Is that correct? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, Lane. And 9.4 is launching Village of Duchess recreational agreement discussion.
Okay, so there's been lots of conversation about recreation funding. And Council recalls that we have a new ICF agreement with Brasano that was approved last year. And with that, a recreation agreement was also adopted. You're involved in discussions at the present time with the City of Brooks. We have reached out to Rosemary and to Duchess, and the Village of Duchess Council is wanting to engage in conversations about a new recreation funding arrangement there. They've gone so far as to appoint 3 members of their village council to a committee that is available to meet with county representatives if county council's wanting to apply the same approach to engaging with the Village of Duchess on the issue of recreation funding. So it's just a question whether you want to appoint 3 members of council or if you want to engage with the Village of Duchess in some other way.
Thank you, Lane. Questions? Kelly.
My question is for Kevin. You started this process. Are you? Have you and Yvonne exhausted all avenues to forward this process?
Yeah, I think from an administration standpoint, we didn't get anywhere in terms of altering or getting agreements in different positions. I think it's come down to the political debate in terms of whether or not either party's going to move from the positions that was given to her and given to me.
Okay, other questions? Tracy?
Well, I think that communication is a good thing. And, you know, I think it's our next step is to, they've reached out and they've, you know, requested, you know, they've opened the doors for us to communicate a little further. And I think it would be a good idea to set up an initial meeting and see where that takes us and then go from there.
Thanks, Trace. Other comments or questions? Okay, so we have a recommendation, and I guess from my perspective, because it is the division that I do represent the division that separates around it, I would not be part of this. I think it's important that there is some separation and some other eyes on this. It probably would help with the flow of thoughts and ideas. So for those, if we're going to pick 3 people, I would not be on that committee. I'm telling you that right now. And but I would be looking for suggestions or some volunteers to, I guess not volunteers, some people that would like to sit on this committee for the county's representative. Anne-Marie?
So Brian, if you decide you don't want to be on here, because originally I thought, well, maybe the same 3 could carry on, because you guys have done a good job with Brooks. So Molly, would you be interested in being on there?
Yes, I could do that.
Okay, thank you, Molly. We have 1, now we need 2 more. I guess I was hoping that there would be some, go ahead, Molly.
I was just wondering if somebody from your our Brooks committee, or your negotiating group with Brooks, and I'm looking at nominating because she's been involved with the municipalities, and this is another municipality.
So you're cut out there from my point of view. I don't know if everybody else heard you too. So I just heard you not going to nominate, and then I didn't hear the name. So sorry, Molly.
Oh, okay. I will nominate Kelly based on the fact that she has represented both the Bazzano and Brooks negotiations, and because there are other municipalities involved.
Thank you. That was good. Kelly, would you accept that nomination?
Yes, I will give it a try. Thank you.
Thank you. Another nomination or recommendation? Ellen.
I would like to ask if Clarence would be interested as well.
Sometimes I think I'm getting too old. No, that's fine. If no one else is stepping forward, I can sit in.
Okay, it sounds like
don't feel obligated to put me on it. That's fine. Someone else really is fighting to get in there.
Okay, well, I don't see any hands shooting up in eager anticipation, so it sounds like we have our 3. Is there any other names that would like to put themselves forward or nominate somebody else? If not, and you 3 have agreed, then that would be, I think, appropriate to make a motion that I would entertain a motion that would put these 3 qualified individuals to negotiate this with us. Tracy.
I would like to make that motion for Clarence, Kelly, and Molly to represent us in communications with the Village of Duchess.
Thank you, Trace. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, 9.5 is Community Engagement Initiative on potential changes to recreation facility program funding.
So continuing on with the discussion about recreation funding, we're obviously involved in these conversations with the urban partners, but there are a number of facilities and community groups throughout the county that also operate and or own recreation facilities that have benefited from funding from the county in the past. And what I'm suggesting is that it would be appropriate for some formal process to be undertaken that would invite these community groups to provide input for council consideration on how the issue of funding all recreation facilities throughout the county, including those that are in the truly rural areas, how they might be able to count on being part of a distribution of funding in the future. We've never gone through a formal community engagement process yet since the public consultation policy has been adopted. And I think that this would probably provide a good opportunity to go through that process before there is a lot of potential pressure or problems that could arise in the future. So I'm just suggesting it might be something that council would want to take a look at. If there is interest in considering how it might work, we would be prepared to pull together a community engagement plan and bring that back for further consideration by council. Something for you to think about at this early stage.
Lane, would part of that community engagement plan revolve around the financial aspect of it, whether the expectation that we would have as council that some of these community groups would have to provide some funding from their own in order to receive county support? Was that your intent on giving the guidelines or developing guidelines for community engagement?
Well, my thought is that what you want to have come out of an engagement process is a model that would be applied going forward that outlines what terms and conditions any organization needs to conform to in order to receive funding for facilities or improvements that they're wanting to undertake on their facilities. It would be inappropriate to, at this point, prepare a model and then go out to the public and simply invite them to say, are you prepared to support this model, take it or leave it? I think you want to, a true engagement process is where you actually bring people in and have them part of developing whatever the model is going to be going forward. So I don't have a suggestion or a model that I have created in my mind as to how funding could work in the future. I think you want to draw on and receive feedback from the community members so that they all have an opportunity of being part of creating whatever that model is going to be that would be applied in the future.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Lane? Molly and Wayne and Kelly.
Thanks, Brian. To Lane, I'm just curious, Lane, the condition that these buildings, facilities, the number beside them, 1, 2, or 3, come from the report that was prepared a couple of years ago, that information, or how did it go?
No, that was entirely a classification that I put down. The one was applied to the newer facilities, the ones that have, so Castles Hall, Patricia Hall, they're relatively new. The 2 is for some that are doing okay, and then the category of 3 was for those that have been pointed out as being at the point where there's significant investment required to get those buildings back to the point where they can carry on for another extended period of time. Don't put a whole lot of weight on that scoring. That was simply an attempt to indicate what state those buildings are in using a very rough scoring system.
Okay.
Wayne, I think you were next.
Yeah, I would like to have some thing that I could take to my rec committee to get their recommendations. So if Lane could put a very rough idea of what kind of questions or what kind of process put in front of them, I could get some ideas from, because I just talked to Echo here a couple of days ago, and she was asking with this process, and she had some definite misgivings. So this would be something that my committee would be very interested in. So I'm thinking we're going to get pretty good engagement in it.
Kelly.
My question is, would you do this engagement countywide or division specific, where the asset is or the recreation facility is located?
I think that the key participants that you would want to reach out to are those community groups that are operating facilities. It would be helpful to have information come back from residents throughout the county, but you really want to pay attention to what the operators or owners of those facilities have to say when it comes to what they see the future of their facility being.
Other questions? Clarence.
I don't know if other communities are like what I think Rolling Hills is going to be like. I think there'll be a lot of questions yet, whether it should be countywide, regionalized rec in these decisions, or do we bring it down into the individual community? There's advantages to both, but I still see a real danger when we do it county-wise that there may be a loss of ownership from those who are working these facilities. And I'll be very honest, I still really question whether we should have gone on a regional basis. Especially when each community is different. Each community built their own stuff. They're all very proud of it. And I think the last thing that council wants to do is, well, we're going to restrict funding and choke off some of these organizations. That's something that politically you just can't do. So I have it'll be a great discussion, and maybe I'm all wrong, but from a Rolling Hills point of view, they would just as soon take it on their own. If they can't afford to run it, I guess it will sit empty. Now I think there's an attitude, oh, the county will pay for it. And I don't know if that's healthy or not. What's not healthy. Anyway, just some thoughts. It'll be interesting to see as we go to individual communities and they realize who's controlling the dollars at the end of the day, whether they're still comfortable with it.
Well, and I think you make a good point, Clarence, but at the same time, I think we have models out there, whether, especially in the most recent ones, whether it's the castles or even the Patricia Hall, where a significant amount of that funds were still raised by the local group. And they did ask and receive money from county, but it was a partnership. And so I hope that that's what this brings out, is that the realization that when these facilities have to either be replaced or upgraded, that it becomes a partnership with the local community, so they do still have their ownership. Kevin.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple things. I think certainly we can go back at any point in time and look at what the rates were at beforehand, what's been collected since, because we do have that assessment information. We have paid the same amounts to the rec boards that we've paid in the past, so that hasn't changed for them. But there is additional balance, and we know that the City of Brooks agreement, when we originally did this, was coming. We knew that those numbers were going to change. I think Council's well aware of what that dollar value is going to do in terms of the balances that sit. So once everything comes together, and we can look at the roll up of the capital plan that Morgan put together for the region, and hopefully through Lane's ideas of consultation, there can be some determination of where funds go, what percentages, how the partnerships work, how they determine if they're replaced. If it goes back to individual divisions to determine whether arena gets replaced, then it probably won't be the rest of the county that's chipping in, other than whatever share needs to come in. So I think process-wise, we're going about it the right way. It's just a lot of unknowns right now in terms of what dollars are actually there and who should be entitled to what, right? I think that's where the questions are going to lie.
Anne-Marie.
And that's a good point, Kevin. Who's entitled to what? And it's good to see that list, because I'm surprised even when I look at that list, and this is only part of it, that I think, oh yeah, Jim has a curling rink. Like, how many people in the county that don't curl do even know where all the facilities are and what state they're in? And so people need information, they need to see the list, and they need to have the conversation.
Wayne.
I think the biggest concern with my group was that they'd lose control of their own facilities. And that is something they do not want to tolerate. We were talking a regional board here a while ago, and they were dead set against that, because they figure that, and I agree with them, they know what they need and they know how to run their facilities. And the vast majority of the money that is spent on their facilities, I think, well, not the vast, but a good portion of it, and I'd say the majority of it, is money that they raised themselves. So I think we just need a process of how this money, direct money, can go out, and what percentage that each individual society or rec board has to raise for themselves to access county money. And yeah, there we go.
Other questions, comments? Lane, do you, oh, sorry, Hubie, go ahead.
I've got the same thoughts here in Tilly. The rec board at our last meeting says the same thing. They want to raise their own funds, but it's their projects and they're proud of them. So that's the way they're looking at it.
Okay, thanks for that. Lane, do you have enough information or direction to proceed with what you've come to us with, or do you require some more input?
No, from what I have heard, the plan is that I would go back, prepare a community engagement plan, and I would be coming back to you to review details of that plan and make sure you're comfortable with that before a decision is made to either go ahead with it, modify it, or to shelve it.
Okay, is that okay with council? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lane. Next thing, set the date for budget planning meeting with council and department heads. Who is taking this one?
Well, Matt has put some dates out there, and it's just a matter of council confirming what dates that you want to go with.
What would council like? What works best for everybody? I see we have, just a minute. July 2nd. Let's go from the first one that's suggested. July 2nd.
Well, and he's saying, yeah, anything between the weeks or between
sorry.
17th
Right.
or the last week of July.
July 13.
No.
15th.
15th is okay. No good for Tracy. We need everybody there. I wouldn't entertain anything except if everybody attends. This is the most important part of our job, and so everybody needs to be there. So 17th. I see thumbs up. Not for you, Ellen?
No. Sorry, you said the 7th. The only thing, I can make any day except the 7th or the 14th.
Okay, so the 17th is still a go?
Or the 17th. Did you say the 7th or 17th? I'm sorry.
17. That's good. Clarence, I can't see you're a little dark. I don't know if that's a plus or an up or a down. So I see 17th is a good day. Good.
He says no.
Except for me. For me, that whole week. For me, the July 12th, that whole week was bad. But the first, like from July 2nd to like the 12th is good, or the end of July is good. Just any of the teens don't work for me. But I'm
20th.
So.
20th.
20th. That's a Saturday. Oh no, I'm still in June. Monday the 20th.
That wasn't an option for
No,
Matt.
it's not an option. 28th to the 31st is the last week.
What about the 2nd or 3rd?
I'm okay with either one of those dates.
Who isn't?
Hubie.
The 3rd is out.
Okay, so
Did we try 14?
14's no good for me. What about week from the 6th to the 10th? We can start with the 10th, I guess. We'll work our way backwards. 10th is good.
Half.
Okay. 9th would be council, so that's not going to happen. 8th. No good. 7th. We had the 7th already. We talked about that one. 6th.
No.
Do I see all thumbs up?
No, Kelly's down.
No. Kelly, you're down. Well, now we're into the 28th. 28th. Molly?
I guess somebody
You're
has to give.
probably camping out at Kinbrook, aren't you?
I am, but you know what? It'll never work if somebody doesn't give a bit. So I'll go with the 28th.
Is there a better day in that week? No?
Not for me, no. It's all the same.
Are we hung up on July? Do we go to August?
No, let's make it the 28th, Brian.
Are you sure, Molly?
Well, yeah.
I know what you get when we take you away from your camping.
No, just go for it.
Okay, I guess the 28th it is.
We could ask Kelly, is the 6th written in stone for you, Kelly, or can you switch that?
I just have a telephone meeting booked with Royal Purple, that's all. I have skipped this meeting before and caught up to you guys too. You guys are not hard to catch up to.
I'm not sure if that's a compliment or a diss.
The 28th is fine, you guys. It'll be a pouring rain day, and I'll love to come into the county office.
Okay. We guess we're going to go with the 28th. Do we want to have a second option, or we're just stuck on the 28th? 28th is good? Okay. It's written in pen, guys. Can't change it now.
What time?
We usually start at 5:30 in the morning, right? What works best for our staff? They're the ones that have to do most of the work. So
For that one, we could do any time, any start time.
The recommended time is 8:30 a.m. by our finance manager.
does that work for everybody? Gonna have all your makeup on, ladies? You're beautiful as it is, so don't worry about it. Anyways, we'll go 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday, July 28th. Oh, excellent. I got that as a Tuesday. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So we need a motion for that date. Anne Marie makes that motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Councillor payment sheets for May 2020. There's some information there. Is there any questions? If not, I need a motion to accept the councillor payment sheets. Hubie makes that motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Checks for payment. Check. We have one for over 350,000. I need a motion for that for Acon Transportation. Ellen makes that motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And payment register. Any questions on the register? Seeing none, I need a motion to accept the register. Molly makes that motion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And we are on to, I got 10-2 for the tender award for the road rehab. Is
Good
Mark,
afternoon, Council. Yes, I am here. Terry is on a leave of absence today, so I'll be taking this one. Every year for the past 8 years, County Renewal Operations has undertaken road rehabilitation through the methodology of road shoulder pulls. So this year's tender closed June 11th at 2 p.m. at the county office. And there was an evaluation criteria sent out to tenderers. So this year we actually had 4 bids as summarized in the costs and funding of the RFD. You can see a couple of people did not qualify based on the equipment that they were going to use and their methodology. So they were disqualified from this, leaving 2 local companies in place. And Terry's recommendation on this is to award the contract to Brooks Asphalt and Aggregate for the 2020 Road Rehabilitation Program. If there are any questions of council, I'd be happy to do my best to answer, but it's before you based on the value of the bids. So,
Tracy.
I was just wondering so the difference between Romer and Brooks Asphalt is only like a 0.57 in points.
Yeah.
What is the difference in criteria? There's quite a large, amount of difference in the cost.
Yeah.
But in my mind, the difference in points isn't big enough that we would sacrifice that big of a cost savings.
Right. So I don't have all of it in front of me because Terry decided to take Wednesday off. So I don't have it all there, but I know that experience performing this work was one of the conditions. The other was price, and within that was some of the equipment. So he fulfilled everything with the equipment and whatnot, but Romer doesn't have any experience in doing this work that they were capable of showing to us that was at least comparable to that of Smith's. And in Terry's evaluation, when he did all the tallies and stuff, it came out that Smith's were the better qualified for the value.
Mark, has Romer done work for the county in the past?
They've been doing some work. They got a contract down at Lake Newell Resort this year doing some of the drainage rehabilitation and stuff. They've also been awarded some of the culvert replacements from the 2019 Road Shoulder program out in Tilly. They're currently performing work on each of those. I know that we're supervising those sites a little bit more than we expected we would have to, based on our past experience. So yes, they've done work for us in the past.
Okay, thank you. Lionel. You're not on, Lionel.
It's one of those days.
Sorry. I like the fact that we're evaluating these companies more than we were in the past, based on their performance and their expected results. So I think, money isn't always the best criteria to use when you're hiring or looking for bids. So I do like the way you've done this, and I agree wholeheartedly in it. In fact, I'll make a motion to accept Brooks Asphalt for this tender.
If I may, before there is a vote on that, I'd just like council to know that when the tender goes out, the evaluation criteria is identified in that tender bid. So those people submitting know exactly what they're being evaluated on. It isn't something that we do after the fact. It has to be known by the bidder so that they can modify and best suit their tender bid to what they're going to be evaluated on.
So I do have a question for you, Mark or Kevin. When it comes to this tender, is there any recourse from somebody that has tendered and has qualified if they have a lower price and they are within that evaluation criteria, like Tracy pointed out? Do they have any recourse to come back to the county and say, I had the best proposal and you didn't accept it, so you're not putting forward a fair tender?
Within the tender document itself,
I'm looking at it from a point of view, if I was making the proposal and I was $50,000 cheaper, why didn't I get it?
Right, and that's why that evaluation criteria comes into play, to remove any of that. In many cases, there's 3 of us that will do evaluations on some of our much larger projects, programs, RFPs from engineers and consultants. With that, we are looking for that experience, because otherwise we spend a lot of time on site supervising things, and that's not what we're looking for. We shouldn't have to hold somebody's hand to get through the project and spend that excess amount of time. The methodologies that were going to be applied with the equipment, I know Terry contacted each of the bidders. to say, I hope you read this. Oh no, I overlooked that when I was submitting that bid. I don't have that equipment. I was just going to use a grader, pull the material up, leave it there, and the county would come through and gravel it. Well, that's not the desired product that we're looking for. That goes back to kind of some of the discussion we had earlier today about the quality of the workmanship and carrying that for the longest term life before the county taxpayer has to invest in that road again. As it pertains to the contract, there are generally the save harmless and indemnity clauses and stuff like that. And we also include that the county reserves the right to accept or reject all tenders based on the criteria outlined and how we best feel what is most suited for the county. It's one of those clauses that kind of gives us an out on things, but that's why we do an evaluation process, because I don't want to come to council just generically saying, we recommend this because we believe in our gut that it's the best bang for our buck. We're going through the evaluation to evidence that this is why it's the best bang for the buck. If council would like to see some of the evaluation ratings and stuff that we do in the future, I'd have to look into whether we can publicly disclose those evaluations or not. Oftentimes we'll have companies phone us that didn't get the work to say, what do I need to do in the future to evidence better so that I have a better chance of getting that work in the future? And that happens often with us, especially the engineering firms. So that's one of the things that potentially Romer Environmental would do, is to call us to follow up, say, hey, why didn't I get it? You didn't evidence that you had the same experience that the other companies did. You obtained lower rating on that. Your price was better, but it might have been 70% experience is what we looked for and 30% evaluation on the price. And that experience far outweighed the value, so that we know we don't have to spend a bunch of time supervising.
I get it, Mark, and I'll take Kevin's comments right away, but I guess it goes to the university student that needs the job to get the experience, but doesn't have the experience to get the job. So
yeah,
that's sort of where it sits in my mind, is that it falls into that. So go ahead, Kevin.
So I'll just add, Mark's got it explained well, but tender law is complex, but essentially, if you set out the terms in your RFP of how things will be rated and you follow them, you do them above board, non-biased, and you do them across the board. Whatever the rating comes out to, if they're the lowest rating, even though they cost more money, if it's applied consistently and fairly, you'll never be in a bind. But if you decide to take somebody that has a lot lower rating than a person without reason, then you do run the risk of having that them take you to task through the courts to recoup potentially what they may have lost. So as long as the terms are clear in the RFP and you follow that, there's nothing that says that you have to take the lowest price, as long as you use your experience, your qualification, your equipment, whatever you have in there fairly, and you're safe.
I think Tracy and then Kelly.
Just a couple of things. So, Mark, you had mentioned a little that if someone didn't have a gravel truck to haul the gravel, then that would be loss of equipment. Well, would that not clarify that that company would be disqualified? Second of all, is there not, I'm not sure if it's called a holdback, but that full payment for a job completed is held back at, I think, 10% until the job is completed satisfactory? And do we have that opportunity with any of our projects that we work on?
All of these large projects always have a holdback taken. That again is our surety that everybody is being paid along the way, whether it's the employees, the subcontractors, or whatever. And some of that is assurance that the job's getting done right. When it comes to if you need a gravel truck, well, just because you don't own a gravel truck doesn't necessarily disqualify you, because if you had a subcontractor come in that had that equipment, it wouldn't be an issue. That would still qualify you on that basis.
Kelly.
I just wanted to share our experience over here in Div 6. We had two different contractors work on TR 214 and TR 210, and the work ethic difference is what Mark is talking to on the scoring side of things. We had one contractor who put out no signage, no work ahead, no safety flaggers, you know, things like that. So that paper that they do, or that scoring system, and both of these companies have worked for the county before, so they know the system. It's unfortunate it's $50,000, I agree, but depending on the road, you need that safety. I mean, well, it doesn't matter what road it is, you need that safety. So I'm in favor of spending this additional expense.
Thanks, Kelly. Tracy?
Well, my comment is we have information presented before us. In the chart, it shows a very small rating for $50,000, so 0.5 difference if for a $50,000 expenditure. That is what I've been presented. I guess maybe if I had more background that talks a bit more about the criteria, but in front of me, I just don't, I'm struggling with this because it's $50,000.
I'll take Wayne and then Molly. Sorry, maybe Mark, do you want to respond?
If council gives me a couple minutes, I'll get that that qualification and evaluation information, and I can read a little bit more to you.
Meantime,
so carry on with your discussion. I'll listen. Jolene's going to grab it for me.
Go ahead, Wayne.
I agree with Tracy. It's 50 grand. Maybe they don't, but if we had a guy sitting out there while this was all being done, it still wouldn't cost us 50 grand. So I think there's just a little too much difference between the bids.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. Molly?
Well, guys, we either have qualifying information or prerequisites, or we don't. And we have a system, and the system worked as far as I'm concerned. And I don't think we can, if we're going to start making one-off decisions about who we hire, then let's form a policy around that rather than just go completely off what we have been doing starting today. I'm totally confused by the idea that we have a system in place that we're going to ignore today. I don't understand that. There's reasons for it. In fact, I'm ready to make a motion.
There is a motion actually on the floor. Lionel made one already in
right.
support of the recommendation. Clarence, I seen you had your hand up.
Well, you know, our staff has made a judgment on the evaluation rating. And we're making a big to-do because it's 0.5 difference in $50,000. You look up a little higher, and there's one 6.55, and Romer's at 7.73, so a little bit over 1. That didn't even qualify. So, you know, how much is 0.1 worth on the evaluation rating? You have to trust your staff on what that is worth. And that's what they're telling us. And, you know, that's good enough for me.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll just leave the last word for Mark as far as giving us some breakdown, and then we're going to go to the vote.
Okay, so for council's information, price was worth 45 points out of 100, so 45%. previous experience was worth 20 points. So actually quite significantly lower. References, so people that have watched these people work before and stuff, was worth 35 points. On the evaluation, and you know, I guess I'll stretch it out a little bit here so that people know. Romer Environmental scored 7.84 points for price. And Brooks Asphalt and Aggregate scored 6.83 points on price. So there's 1 point of evaluation, just about in 1.01 point difference in favor of Romer Environmental. On the previous experience, Romer Environmental has experience in grading. We've talked to the owner, did not have, what's he got here? Did not have a clear path did not have clear experience in performing shoulder pulls in the past, but is aware of how we do our shoulder pulls. Plans on using a disc to work that material once it's pulled up on the road versus using that big incorporation machine that even prior to Brooks Asphalt and Aggregate obtaining that, a company that we hired based out of Rocky Mountain House had one of those large incorporators or a pulverizer that you can pull the grass, you can pull the gravel, and it just pulverizes all of it, and it's dead. Romers were going to use a disc. Romer's rating on the previous experience was a 7. Brooks Asphalt and Aggregate, being that they've done 3 years worth of shoulder pull work for us, they've done excellent job and stuff like that. They were rated at a 9.5 out of that. When it came to references, Romer has built a number of roads for various oil field companies and stuff in our area. They have good operators. Other reference commented, good grader operators, good work at building roads, leases, good to work with. And didn't have any specific references that tied to road shoulder pulls. Brooks Asphalt had references talking about good work from all kinds of road work, be it road paving and everything, which, you know, some of it's not relevant here, but 3 years worth of shoulder pull work, lots of work for various other types with drainage and everything as well. Romer scored 8 on that, and Brooks Asphalt and Aggregate scored 9.5. So the numbers were actually quite tight all the way through it, but based on the 45 points, 20 points, and 35, and the overall evaluation, it came out to be very close evaluation at the end of that, but in favor for Brooks Asphalt and Aggregate.
Thank you, Mark. Is there any other questions? If not, then Lionel has a motion on the floor that would accept the recommended action of Brooks Asphalt receiving this bid. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work on this, guys, as well. Always, sometimes it's a hard decision, but I think it's well thought out. Good discussion. I'm going to back up because I forgot to do requests for functions of council, 9.1. Is there any requests for functions of council? Kelly.
I just wanted to make council aware that I wasn't able to get into the EOEP, even though I went to register that very night. It was full already. So apparently these things are hot tamales. They have since rescheduled another one. It came out yesterday. It's August 13th, 20th, 27th, and September 3rd. And I quickly hopped on it and they took my registration. So I am registered for those 4 dates. And I just wanted to let you know, you gave me permission to go to the June and July one. Okay.
Do we need to alter the motion or to redo the motion according, were those dates tied to that motion that we made to allow you to attend, Kelly, or do you know that?
Offhand, I couldn't answer that. Ariana probably could.
Just want to make sure that we're above board when it comes to the dates. I think, as I recall, it was just for you to participate in the EOEP course. I don't think we put dates in it.
Very good.
And Ariana, I see your hand up. You're like a little speck on my computer, so.
Sorry, I did put a date on it, so.
Okay, so we will change that then. Anne-Marie.
I'll make a motion to allow Kelly to go to the EOP course in August. And I'm looking to your report, Kelly, because that might be helpful with the upcoming discussion about recreation.
Yes. Okay, so we have a motion. Any questions? If not, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And committee reports. We have some there from Alberta Seniors. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Is there, I see Wayne's hand up.
I have one for PEP.
Go ahead, you have the floor.
I have it? Okay. Let me find it first. Oh, it's right here. Okay, we had a meeting on the Friday. I can't remember the date. The Tiny Homes Project in Bizana was looking for more funding at this time. The AGM for PEP will be in Oyen on September 18th. There was a report on value added to agricultural products committee, and it was made decided at the meeting that they will not be looking at China anymore. They're looking anywhere else in the world, but they don't believe that China can be trusted, so they be looking at any investment or to look at setting products that way. Also, Selena McLean, and she is with Alberta Development, said that Alberta Tourism is offering funds for projects. The program is Alberta Rebound Campaign. So if anybody in the tourism, like Anne-Marie and Ellen, I believe they're offering funds that are non-matching funds. So anybody in the tourist industry can look into it and apply for that. Also, the internet program is still on with PEP, but it has been taken on by the County of Lethbridge, and there's a few other municipalities who are involved in that, but obvious we aren't, and with EID. So that's about it for that.
Thanks, Wayne. I see joint services is on the list. Can you, who would like to provide an update on the joint services, or is there one? Tracy.
I think one of our big things, Molly and Lionel, that came out from our joint services meeting, we did have one, was they're looking at wanting to sort of talk about getting a subcommittee put together involving some members of our communities for the doctor retention program. We're seeing some changes in some doctors leaving our areas and our area, and we want to kind of just get, I guess, a more active group, I guess, was the idea behind that. Yeah, Molly, do you have anything else, Lionel, to talk about that? Other than that was about it.
Yeah, I'm assuming the minutes will get circulated eventually. Yeah, there's been quite a few changes in, or there are some more changes coming in, doctors possibly leaving the community, and it's not as much attraction anymore as retention and sort of RPAP. Only the medical AHS is doing much more of the showing doctors the community, saying these are the options for where you get to go, and so there's less community, let's say, intervention in what you can do to try and lure doctors to your city. And so we're trying to get more retired health people perhaps involved to help us understand better what it is that will help do that, I think was the biggest message from that. And it is a critical issue. We need to keep our doctors for sure.
Thank you. Any questions? And sorry, I didn't ask for questions for you, Wayne, and for Anne-Marie for your written report. Is there any questions for those two reports? If not,
Just one other thing. I think if you've heard lots about rural doctors and rural health, it's not always about our money. And I think for a community like Brooks, that it's not really a compensation issue, but it's more of rural work is so different than urban work. Doctors are expected in the rural to run their clinics and to be at the hospitals and to cover emergency and to do all sorts of things that setting doctors don't. So the fear is that if on-call, for example, increases a lot more than it is in the rural because of cutbacks or changes in formulas, that our local doctors will just say, well, we'll just worry about our clinics. We won't worry about on-call. So there's a lot of intricacies. And I think the difference between rural healthcare sometimes stands out compared to the city. We already know because of distance and having to travel to specialist appointments that it's a different challenge. And so we have to make sure that our rural doctors are looked after in a little bit different way than urban doctors.
Thanks, Molly. That's a good point. And I think sometimes we lump them all into the same category, and there is a difference. There definitely is. Any questions? Anne-Marie, in your report, did they, or in that, did they talk anything about private healthcare lodges versus publicly funded ones, and how some of the issues with this pandemic have really been, in other jurisdictions and other provinces, how they've been really pronounced in some of the privately funded ones? Did that come up for discussion at all?
Not during the AGM, no. It comes up with Dan Klein is the rep on the Russia South board, and they do talk about it. But at that AGM, no, it didn't come up.
Any other reports, Molly?
I have some that I'm working on written, so I will finish those before the end of June and get them to you. A little hectic recently.
Thanks, Molly. Anybody else have a report that they would like to submit orally? If not, as always, a written report is always really well appreciated. It's easy to digest, and you can have your thoughts a little bit ahead of time. So thank you for that. Thank you for the reports. We have post-agenda left, but I think we should go back and talk to the request for property tax review. We had a request for this. How does council want to deal with this? Kelly.
Although I sympathize with their situation, and I do, I don't know how we can do a one-off. So unless we're going to talk about a complete restructure for oil and gas, I think we take this as information. But I want to remind council of when our ranchers were in dire need of assistance. We had some who never did recover during the beef crisis. So have to be very careful how we proceed with making changes. Thoughts.
That's a good point. I just not sure how you balance trying to keep somebody in business between losing them completely. And that's, I think, where I get the feeling we're all struggling with that. I don't know if we have an answer. Maybe Matt and Kevin have a great solution for us.
Well, I can add a few comments. I think certainly it's unfortunate, and everybody knows that the gas industry and what they've been through. That's, I mean, part of the reason that the province had give them a 30% reduction. Certainly, there's going to be some changes to the assessment for them. I know that's going to happen for sure. These past arrears, a company takes over a company, doesn't know they have balances. A company doesn't understand the difference between a 23% penalty and a line of credit of 6%. It's pretty hard for us here to feel sorry for that. If we relied last year on 82% of our property taxes where it was our revenue to fund the municipality. And if that's in jeopardy for other people that don't pay it, or we set precedents on that, it's really unfortunate. We also have to remember that, our mill rate was 8.59, and the average for non-res for municipal district and counties was 13.56. So if there's a portion of that we have to write off and we can't collect through means, the other areas are going to have to pick it up. So we're going to squeeze out between what our mill rate is and what that mill rate is in order to cover these companies off, because we have quite a list this year that are unpaid. And we know that oil and gas is not simple, especially linear, is not simple when they don't pay. So I think our problems are going to get worse, and we have to be really careful on how we address arrears, in my view.
What about Clarence? Go ahead.
I don't think we've ever bailed somebody out when they make bad business decisions. And there was bad business decisions made here. They were working in a terrible environment, granted. We've never bailed anybody out in terrible environments either. I think we have to take stock of where we are. This isn't going to be the first one. Well, this is, I guess, the first one we've heard of it. But I guess what I'm saying, it's not going to be the last. And even if we forgave them all, I'm not sure they'd still make it. So I think either way, we're going to lose it. Obviously, they tried to pay some taxes. They did more than they had to. But not knowing that, buying a company and not knowing there's tax consequences, somebody didn't do their homework. Just that simple. So
I guess the part that I'm getting a little bit is the compounding of the penalties, and I'm just wondering if there's any possibility not to forgive what's out there, but that that those numbers get compounded by the amounts they can't say. So Wayne, I know you got your hand up.
I'd like to talk to that for a minute. Kevin just mentioned it. If you find that out, you go to the bank and you borrow it, because it's a hell of a lot cheaper to get the money out of the bank than having to get those penalties. That's just bad business.
Yeah.
We can't be paying attention to that.
Go ahead, Matt.
Oh. Yeah, I just wanted to remind council that we actually had a conversation, I don't know if you recall it, last year, around the same time actually, about Success Resources and entertaining the idea of entering into a tax payment agreement with the company that addressed the compounding of penalties. We had proposed that they make good moving forward on their current year taxes, and under agreement, we would suspend further application of that penalty bylaw. That would, it did not forgive the penalties that had accrued. It would recognize their responsibility for that. But then over a period of 5 to 10 years, whatever, and we threw it out to Marshall, you know, you tell us based on your cash flows. You say you can't do it monthly, and you do it semi-annual. Is it once a year that you take care of the arrears? And they didn't move on it. So there's been a couple of these companies which have been administratively expensive for you. The penalties is it's a punitive thing. It's there to make sure that people pay their taxes. Yeah, I don't know how you can forgive the penalties and not send just a real negative message to everybody else who is paying their taxes. You need the heavy hand of the penalty to encourage payment. Ultimately, you need to be paying your tax bills. And there's not many of our companies out there who don't pay their taxes. There's only a handful.
Thanks, Matt. I think that between you and Clarence, it gives me a little bit of recourse. But go ahead, Wayne, since you had your hand up.
Yeah, I agree with what the Clarence and Matt have said. I didn't know the information that Matt was brought forward, and what Kevin also said, you could go get a bank loan. This could have been solved. They made a bunch of bad business decisions, and our ratepayers shouldn't be responsible for it. I'd hate to lose that revenue from those wells if they decide to go bankrupt, but sometimes you can't. That happens. So I don't think we can do much.
Any other thoughts or comments on this? What do you need from us, Matt or Kevin, as far as this regards? Is just simply communicating that we are staying with our policy, or do you require something different? Kevin.
Well, I think I didn't speak to Matt about it, but I think we should have the same offer that we had last year when Matt met with them with regards to cleaning things up, moving forward and entering into some type of an agreement. If they're not prepared to do that, then I don't think there's anything that we can do. I think we can help them get out of this and freeze things going forward. It's just going back. I think it's a really dangerous game.
Okay. Tracy.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment, was like, I guess on one hand, I'm kind of shocked that they didn't look into it further after we'd thrown that offer out there. I'd forgotten about it till you mentioned it just now, Matt. But I guess if we had made that decision at one time, going back to them and saying, well, you know, we can still offer you the same, get you set up on a repayment plan, that's at least an option for them that should help them out. But if they're not prepared, then we carry forward as is.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, I think you guys, you don't need a motion or anything, right? Okay. Post agenda. Southern Alberta Energy from Waste request for increased support of grant application. I think this is this Lane?
It is, because it was referred to council through Lionel, but I prepared the information that's on the agenda package. So there is a particular grant program that SAEWA is wanting to try to access, but in order to be approved for consideration in that program, you have to be supported by a particular organization that would recommend funding on your behalf or on behalf of the project. The only organization that we could reach out to that would be one that we have been asked to engage with is the government of Alberta. And SAEWA as a board is wanting the county's assistance in engaging with the local MLA, and then I think going beyond her level as well to engaging with other members of the government caucus in an effort to increase the level of support that there may be for accessing funds through this particular grant program. I don't know, Lionel, if there's other information that you've got that you would want to bring forward at this time, but that's really the gist of the issue from what I understand it to be.
No, I don't have any other information. The only information I received is the same as you did, Lane. And I think you did an exemplary job in council.
And so, Lionel, Lane, would you guys, you have an option 1 there. Is that in the form of a motion? And further to that, is there any funding responsibilities that go along with this, or that's still to come?
There wouldn't be any expenses incurred, but what we would be looking for council to do is to actually reach out and engage directly with the MLA, and there would be additional follow-up that would hopefully be taken as well after meeting with her, where we would try and reach out to other members of the government caucus. It's not just a matter of making an initial call and bringing it to their attention. It's literally trying to work the network, engage with the network of government representatives in increasing the profile of the project and gaining support for them to pursue this particular application through the ERA fund.
Kelly?
So the last we heard from SAEWA, we were shortlisted for location. Is it still a competition, or has it landed in our laps?
No, the SAEWA board has made the decision. There was a recommendation from the engineers that the Newell landfill site was the first choice for the facility to be located. There was a meeting that was held at the JBS Center here. When was it? In January, where the representatives from SAEWA came out and presented on the overall process that had been undertaken for reviewing each of the various sites, and it was confirmed there that the Newell site is the top recommendation for them to go ahead with. So it has reached that point, and now it's moving forward to the point where they're trying to go after funding for the project now.
Really, it's a lobbying thing now to try to get provincial support. I think that's the directive. Kevin, you had your hand up too.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Lane or Lionel, I guess, if Michaela asks how much, what are we looking from the trusted partner, the government of Alberta here? What do we tell them? Is there a dollar value? Is there a percentage share? Is there something we can share with her if she asks?
Just a minute, Kevin.
I don't have that answer. The total dollar value of this project is 400 million plus. Again, it's a big operation. So, you know, they've been asked already, but of course, not something they jump at. And this is just a continuation of the process.
Lane, go ahead.
Yeah, the information that was provided by Sherry Poole, who's the SAEWA, Executive Director, she provided a link for the Emissions Reduction Alberta website, and it refers to a number of other successful projects that have applied for funding through that organization and the amount of funding involved. And there's quite a range. Some of them are very large projects that have received a considerable sum of funding. Others are smaller. So I don't think that the SAEWA board is suggesting that there's a specific amount that they're wanting to apply for right now. But the program is in place. But in order to be considered, it's a trusted partner that has to refer the project to the Emissions Reduction Alberta program. And the government of Alberta is one of the few trusted partners. So we've got to engage with the government, get them to support the project, and then an application would be submitted to Emissions Reduction Alberta. I don't think that the board is suggesting at this point just as exactly how much they would be applying for, but we need to cultivate that relationship and get the government support before an application could even go forward.
So what were you guys thinking as far as to do that cultivation, as you said, Lane? Is that a council to MLA thing? Is it simply in the form of a letter that states what our intentions is with a request to, if she needs more information or wishes to engage in us, that we do that? Or what do you think is the most appropriate way to go forward with that engagement?
Personally, I think an appropriate step would be for a conversation to take place at the joint services level, get that group on board, and then extend an invitation for the MLA to attend a joint services meeting where the importance of the project to the region would be discussed, and engage with her on what we can do as a group of municipalities in this region to increase the profile of the project with other members on the government side. I think that that's the first step, but it would be something that would probably expand out from there. She would be able to provide us with some guidance on what could be done to assist in increasing the profile as well. She was also at the meeting where the SAEWA executive were presenting at the JBS Center, and she is very much in support of and recognizes the benefits the project would have for the region. Now it's a matter of formally starting a lobby effort that she would be directly involved with.
Molly.
I'm wondering, Lane, time must be of the essence. I mean, it says that this intake business has been open for a month already. I'm wondering if it would be possible to talk to Jessica from Economic Development, and so we could maybe get something set up for a meeting in our next meeting in July at Joint Services to see if Michaela could attend that meeting, because this can't be a really long process, can it, to get going?
No, the sooner action is taken, the better. There's a window of opportunity. It's probably a fairly narrow one, and I think we need to get on top of it as soon as we can. So I would agree that, yes, we should be reaching out and getting this before Joint Services, engaging with Michaela as soon as possible. It wouldn't hurt to have a conversation with her even before Joint Services, and then see see what else can be done to move it along quickly.
Lionel and Kelly?
I think that's a really good suggestion, Molly. And if Michaela was given a heads up before we met with her, it would give her some time to get some background information gathered up too.
Kelly?
I was just prepared to make the motion to proceed with option 1, initiate a lobby effort directed at the GOA.
Thanks, Kelly.
Through joint services.
Right. Would it, is it premature to also reach out to cabinet ministers, specifically Minister of Environment? Or is this the first step that has to be done before you proceed? I just know that, you know, in our past that if you don't have a cabinet minister in your back pocket, you're not going to get much done.
Quite right. Sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
Kevin?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I do think it's going to be a good idea for somebody to try to determine what they're looking for, because those monies that the ERA has paid out previously was a very small percentage of the project, like 5 million or 2 million. So if they're going to ask you what are you going to use that money for towards the $450 million project or whatever, I think somebody's going to need to have that answer. Otherwise, we'll be just spinning our wheels. That's what I'm worried about.
Thanks, Kevin. Molly?
Yeah, I think SAEWA itself needs to provide, if they want us to be involved, we need to get information from them. What is it that they want? And Raymond needs to be involved to get us speed on the information, because it's hard to know what we're fighting for, because we're sort of on the circle of government of Alberta, and I get why they want us involved, but we need more information, don't you think, Lionel? Like facts and figures or plan?
I agree. Like we need the board from SAEWA to be involved in this discussion, because I don't have those answers. I don't have that information at all. Maybe we should have Raymond here today to give us a little bit of guidance on this too, because he is on the board of directors.
Would it be appropriate that Raymond, if Michaela is attending a joint services meeting, that Raymond is part of that is able to provide some of the insight into what we're trying to push forward?
I think that'd be a good step forward, yes.
Wayne, you had your hand up?
Yeah, and if you get Raymond and Michaela at joint services, I think that'd be a good idea. But like SAEWA should definitely know exactly what they're asking for, but nothing vague. Like, we want funding. Well, how much do you want? And how do you propose to finance this thing? If they have that stuff in place, I think it'd be a lot easier for the government to look at it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Kelly has made a motion to support option 1. Seeing no hands up, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We have some information items. Any questions in regards to that? One thing I had, upcoming and community events. Molly, do you know of anything with Canada Day that we should be aware of? I know everything's scaled back, but just curious whether there's any participation for anything or out there that we need to be aware of.
I have received no invitations to do anything for Canada Day. I know that there's a few activities being planned by the city. I haven't really heard much about other communities and what they're up to besides fireworks, perhaps, or drive through or drive in things. So I really don't have a lot to tell you, Brian.
Okay. Ellen, I see your hand up.
That's correct. Molly is correct. The Brooks has cancelled the breakfasts at the museum. There's going to be fireworks, and there's going to be one other thing. I can't find it. Just one moment. Oh yeah, I found it. Yes, there's nothing at the parks, and the fireworks and a movie. That's what I understand are the only things that are happening in Brooks.
Okay. Is there any other communities that have something that we are not aware of? Okay, thank you. I don't have anything else before in camera. Did I cover everything on the agenda that I can see, or is there something I've missed?
Brian, I'm wondering if we've got to come back and have a further discussion about the Economic Recovery Task Force information. We did have the conversation with Jessica, but I thought there was some additional discussion that was needed on that.
Okay, thank you. That's a good suggestion. From what was received, there was some short-term and longer-term proposals. I guess with what you were talking about, Wayne, and your PEP report, is there anything there that would align with the restart that Jessica and Jamie were bringing out that we could access, or should we just do it on our own if there's appetite for that?
That I know of, I think for restart, like with the internet, I think for internet to try and get better internet service, we should really be discussing with the EID what we do for them and help them with. Other than that, I think we just have to see what we can do here ourselves.
Kelly.
I'd like to pick up where Clarence left off. I really liked the point that he made around calling it a plan for restart. The questions were all there. They were looking for restart answers, but in fact, they did basic steps in economic development only. I mean, they're immediate, short-term, and long-term. Those are all economic development steps that would have been done anyway. So I kind of think that the process got side-railed, to be honest with you, because the brainstorming and idea gathering questions were not answered, in my opinion.
Anne-Marie.
The walkways are a good example of that, Kelly. I kind of agree with you, because if they do a walkway to Lake Newell Resort, and Kinbrook would even be better, then yeah, get on it, girls, and let us know how we can help you. I'm excited for them to do it. But if it's only as a suggestion for us to pick it up, then yeah, we've been there. We tried.
Wayne and Tracy.
Yeah, and the thing is, if they want to push those pathways, they should have engaged with the EID already. They're the landowner. And they say, no, we haven't engaged with them yet. Well, get after it. That's your job.
Tracy?
Yeah, like I think a little bit what they're looking for, in what I understand, is stuff that we're going to say to them, yeah, we agree that we'd like you to pursue this and come back with some information and stuff. The one that they talked about to me that I thought was one of their priorities was the off-road use vehicles, because then it brought in the rental companies and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, sure, let's let them work on it, and let's hear, what they have to say and what it would look like, for sure. I don't see any harm in that. And then the pathways, sure, if they want to, go on with it, then, have at her. And, I don't see anything on their list that shouldn't be done. Those are all things that could have been done even before COVID. But if you are working on them now, work on them. Like, they're all economic development. They're stimuli drivers for our communities, and it's great. Like, go give her.
What about on the short? I'm just looking at the short-term ideas on her presentation, and that first one, development, waiving fees for development permits and reducing red tape fixing processes. Is that something that is that's sort of, I look at that as like low-hanging fruit. Is that something that we can show that at least we're aligning with the city when it comes to being receptive to somebody that wants to spend some money on a development? Anne-Marie.
I don't see that as a low-hanging fruit even. If you're going to develop, that development permit fee is not going to stop you or encourage you if you don't have to pay it. The fixing of the processes is another example of that needs to be done anyway, whether you have COVID or not. So yeah, fix the processes and maybe try to have them closer between the city and the county. Like, see what you can do together. But as far as development permit fees, whether you charge those or not, I don't see it, but maybe I'm missing something.
Kevin.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple things on this matter. I think we've worked on it internally a little bit, probably going to be discussing it through budget preparation, but we thought that we have to do something because COVID is only compounding development in our belief going forward. And either we need to get really aggressive on a marketing campaign and spend some dollars on trying to get people to purchase stuff in the region and move out here, or our vacancies are through the roof. And so there's a number of things like tax incentives for new builds. That may be something that we're going to have to look at, where we forgive municipal taxes for a year or two to get people to come here, because there's going to need to be an attraction. Our development has been really slow for 10 years, regardless of COVID. Maybe we're going to have to charge just what it costs to hook up on the water rather than $7,700 plus. Maybe it's just a straight break even. Get rid of the development costs. Yeah, that's a low-hanging fruit, but at the end of the day, it might all help. Off-site levies, if we're going to charge off-site levies on developments, that's going to discourage them. It's only going to be, in my belief, it's only going to bring development out that's viable. And there is ample lots of service land throughout the city, throughout the county currently. And I think we're going to need to try to get aggressive with regards to try to fill that up.
Thanks, Kevin. So what you're suggesting is that that'll be part of the budget process this in July that we're going through, or should we look at something a little sooner as far as trying to motivate the industry, the public, or whatever, to let them know we're there, right? So.
Yeah, it's going to be ideas, I think, to find out from council where council stands on it, because everything is going to come with either a revenue loss or a cost, probably, right? So it's going to have to be a decision with regards to, are we prepared to give up that revenue? Or are we prepared to throw some money at marketing or hiring somebody that is going to come out and look at filling up businesses and whatever's in the region to try to get the connection between vacant buildings and tenants or owners.
Okay. So is that sort of leaves you hanging, Lane, or what? As far as how to respond to Jessica and Jamie?
Well, good question. I guess, how's it going to be best to take this back? Should it be through joint services where they report to?
Molly, Lionel, and Tracy, do you guys feel confident to be able to articulate that back to the group? Molly.
I came in just around this time that they started, and it seems to me that they are going to give us more information as well. So isn't that correct, Lane?
That's my understanding, that there will be more information forthcoming. But I think that there's an opportunity for us to feed them some information that would help them set direction as well.
Yeah, we could do that, I guess, have a discussion at joint services about it. That makes sense.
Tracy?
I don't know, I sort of got the impression that they wanted feedback from us. They had said they had gotten some feedback from the city or had presented to the city, and that the city was getting back. And then they were going to bring it forward to joint services as it was dictated by joint services. So to me, in my opinion, we need to give them something a little more concrete. Like right now, they've talked to host municipalities. They want some feedback on some of the ideas they're throwing around, and then they'll come together, they'll put together, and then take it to joint services. That was my understanding.
Wayne?
Just one idea that you put improved internet services is one of the goals they've got there. So why don't we ask them to try to get a hold of the EID with the city, with the county, set up and start looking at ways to improve the internet in our area. Not just keep talking about it, but get something going.
Yeah, and I guess we've been back and forth with that one too. And I'm assuming when you say internet, you mean fiber. No?
Yeah, fiber, but we have to work with the EID. We've got to find out where they want to come from, where they're willing to go, and we also have to decide what share of this we're willing to take on, and the city has to do the same thing, because we can't expect the EID to do it all themselves. We want the better service, and so maybe we're going to have to step up to the plate. This is probably one of the things that will promote industry in our community a lot more than anything else, if we can get some really good internet service.
Kate, do you, as a joint services committee, have enough to go back with, or to collect more data from them, or more ideas, or do you require some more help?
I'm just wondering if anybody's been writing down these ideas. Lane, have you been keeping track of anything?
I've got some down.
Because Kevin expressed some information about the development permits and, working with the city or looking at some of those things. I think it's funny how I always believe that we have reduced red tape. I hope we have over the years. Maybe not. Maybe we're just getting into that now, doing our own with development. And I guess, I don't know, Tracy and Lionel, what do you think? Have some ideas for joint services?
I see Clarence's hand up. He's going to give you all the answers.
No, I'm not. Molly was at an occasion this morning to know what brought those people here. That's what we need. that type of thing. You need people, capital coming in and making this area a place where they want to produce things. I have no idea what that could be. That's what you need. You need activity. You need people with private capital to come. How do you get those people here? Working with JBS, that's great, because here's our prime, one of the prime industries here. What? They send some of their carcasses off, way off to some area. Can we do that here? Is there other spin-offs from that industry that we can use? And get that private money involved and help them all you can by reducing all the stuff that we can do as a government. The governments don't make jobs. You got to make the climate to have people come here to make jobs. And I think we often miss that. And it's really, really hard to do. But, you know, all this other stuff is fine. Yes, they need proper internet. And that's good to do, but create something. Is there something we can do in further manufacturing of agricultural products? I don't know, but those are the types of people you have to be able to bring in. Anyway, like economic development is such an elusive thing. You just shake my head at it.
I got Lionel and Ellen and Molly.
Well, that's exactly right, Clarence. Like, it's almost impossible to either predict or even set up invitations for industry to come in. Industry's going to come in when they think they can make money. That's all they're not about anything else. They're not here as a benevolent contributor to our community. They're make money. That's what it's about. And I don't know. I think the only thing we can do is just not get in their way. Most important thing.
Well, I think there is things you can do, and I think Wayne touched on that with the fiber. We don't have to necessarily be the investors, but we have to make it easier for those companies to be able to access the things they need here. Anyways, that said, Ellen and then Molly.
Yes, I would have to agree with the internet as well, but that's exactly what I was going to say. Follow the money. I think what Kevin said prior, give them perhaps a tax incentive. I don't know what that would look like. The first year, no taxes. I'm just throwing a few ideas. Second year, perhaps half. They're going to look at the money. If they can save a buck, they want to go somewhere else, but hey, they can save some money getting in our area. That's what they're going to do. So I couldn't agree more. Follow the money. Tax incentive, I would say, is real important.
Molly.
Well, it's good to hear the ideas for sure. Interestingly enough, the company this morning, I was going to write a little report about it. The fellow that spoke, I guess the main guy in it all, said it was almost a series of missteps or misevents, and that pulled all people together. But I'm not so sure that I don't know what the involvement of the city is as far as it's being built in their industrial park. I'm not sure what incentives there were there. This is if this all falls into place, this is a huge research and development project for all the different possibilities for medicinal cannabis use. and could, at its best, could provide 1,000 jobs eventually for our community, which sounds absolutely spectacular and wonderful, and I hope it happens. So how did all those parties come together? It's I'm not sure of the story. I know the city worked very hard. Alan Martins was thanked today for his participation, and Barry, and some of the fact that Ron Howard, who has been involved at the Hort Station for years, is very he's involved in this as well. His information, his knowledge. So it's one of those things that, everybody's right. Everything that's been said, we know the elusiveness of economic development, and at this point in time, it's even more elusive because everybody's going to be wanting the same things for their community. I think we need to look at what we've got, and as always, see if we can keep it here. JBS mentioned this morning, and I think that's good to see if there's some be added to their chain, what they provide for the whole food industry. And I've always said that it's up to municipalities to provide the infrastructure and as climate as you used, Clarence. But I think the internet and the roads, water, and our technical force and the skills of our people, all of those things come into play. How that happens to all fall into place, that you get lucky and have a company come into your community, I'm not so sure how that plays out. But I guess go on having these conversations, and I guess we have a bit for joint services anyhow to talk about. And Lane, if you have any other information that you can forward to the three of us on the committee, that would be good too. That's about all I have. And we're not sure when that company will. They're hoping to be beginning to do some building before the end of the year for sure. And Sandra will have a big write-up in the paper, and so there'll be lots more information for you to read about.
Can't hear you, Brian.
I was turned off again. I heard some feedback, so I turned myself off. Go ahead, Clarence.
Well, I guess we were just talking about SAEWA. So who spearheads that now in our community? Who makes sure that goes? We've been given this opportunity. Now who spearheads it?
Lots of blank faces.
I know, because that's what we need. We need somebody local to push. To make sure all the pieces fall into place. Because we don't want to lose it. Unless you think it's not a good project to have, but we tried awful hard to get it. Now let's make sure we do a good job with it. So who does that in our community?
Well, maybe that's a great question to present to that, and we should have some options as far as the people that are involved now and are knowledgeable and are, if they need some help with the business part of it, then we should offer that. Kevin.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I talked to Lane briefly about it, but I think internally we'd be prepared to help them, but we would have to get the costs and understand what they're looking at for the 400 or 450 million to build this thing, how that can be physically funded, because those numbers are way outside of our jurisdiction, let me tell you. So if they're talking 4 or 5 million from the county and 4 or 5 million from the city and the rest of the partners to build up a business plan to make it look like it's workable, we can do that. But to chase it without having that laid out, I think is going to be difficult.
Wayne.
So basically you're saying they've got to have a business plan that we can work with. And because they have to have a goal, someplace where they want to get to and how they're going to get there.
Well, the business plan
They have a business plan, Wayne. That's all been developed. It's just a matter of having somebody that leads the project and brings that all forward to the next level. Lionel, I think you have probably more insight into that than I do.
Well, I don't know if I have any insight exactly, but I mean, there's a committee. This thing started almost 10 years ago now. Yeah. And it's a big process to even get to this point. It's been a big process. Clarence, you had a really good comment that, and somebody in this community needs to spearhead this and carry it forward. And I think that's an excellent suggestion we go to joint services with. It would be, do you have a pen in your hand? You can write that one down.
You've got, I don't know who the fellows were. They were there at the meeting in, what was it, January or something? Those guys need some local help. And we've got some momentum. Let's keep it going. And you can't always expect people from the outside to do that. So, we need some, whatever facilitation we can do, we should be prepared to do that. Yes, the money is huge. We're not going to have the money to do that, but let's not have the process just fall by the wayside now.
That's a good point. And I mean, these projects have been built in other communities in the same light. I'm sure the one in BC didn't have $450 million kicking around either. So it's about gathering the momentum and finding the individual or individuals that will push this forward. Lionel.
Don't forget, SAEWA is a collection of 63 communities. So it's not just us. It encompasses most of southern Alberta.
Okay, so again, the committee, you guys have some guidance here? Okay, if nothing else, then all I have left on my list is in camera. Is that correct, Wayne? Ariana?